आनंद आनंद हरि नाम रे आनंद हरि नाम रे गाओ नाम गाओ हरि गुण गाओ हरि नाम गाओ। गजवदना गौरी नंदन गजवदना गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गजमुख नाथा गजमुख गणनाथा गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गजानना 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 नना गजानना ओम गजवदना गजानना ओम गजवदना गौरीनंदन गजवदना गौरीनंदन गजवदना गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गजमुख नाथा गजमुख गणनाथा गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गजानना 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 ओम गजवदना वदना एकदन्ता गजानना एकदन्ता गजानना हेरम्बा गजानना हेरम्बा गजानना एकदन्ता गजानना एकदन्ता गजानना हेरम्बा रम्बा गजानना 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 ओम गजवदना गजानना ओम गजवदना एकदन्ता गजानना एकदन्ता गजानना हेरम्बा गजानना हेरम्बा गजानना एकदन्ता गजानना एकदन्ता गजानना हेरम्बा गजानना हेरम्बा गजानना 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 ओम गजवदना गजानना ओम गजवदना गौरीनंदन गजवदना गौरीनंदन गजवदना वरदा मां पाहि गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गजमुख गणनाथा गजमुख गणनाथा गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गणेश वरदा मां पाहि गजानना 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 ओम गजवदना ओम गजवदना नंदन नंदन गजवदना नंदन गजवदना श्री घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे गोविंदा गोपाला श्याम रारे मोरा नंद लाला गोविंदा गोपाला श्याम रारे मोरा नंद लाला श्याम रे घन श्याम रे 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 मोहना माधवा मेरा प्रीतम ब्रजबाला मोहना माधवा मेरा प्रीतम ब्रजबाला श्याम रे घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम नागरा पांडव रक्षक परिपाला नंदना नागरा पांडव रक्षक परिपाला घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे मेरे घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे मोरे घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे श्याम रे घन श्याम रे ओम विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करम् ओम विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करम् अनाथदीनरक्षकम् अनन्तसद्गुणाकरम् अनाथदीनरक्षकम् अनन्तसद्गुणाकरम् गणेश्वरम् महेश्वरं गणेश्वरं गजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं महेश्वरं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करम् योगिनां हृदन्तरे वसन्तभास्करं विभुं योगिनां हृदन्तरे वसन्तभास्करं विभुं मुदाकरं कृपाकरं सुधादात्मरञ्जकम् मुदाकरं कृपाकरं सुधानन्दात्मरञ्जकम् गणेश्वरं गजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं महेश्वरं गणेश्वरं गजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं महेश्वरं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करम्. ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति। Together we will chant Bhaj Govindam verses 10 to 20 please. Bhaj Govindam Govindam Bhaj Mudhamate Samprapte Sannihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrun Karane Satsangatve Nissangatvam Nissangatve Nirmohatvam Nirmohatve Nishchalatatvam Nishchalatatve Jivan Muktihi Vayasigate kaha kama vikaraha shushke nire kaha kasaraha क्षीणे वित्ते कः परिवारो ज्ञाते तत्त्वे कः संसारः मा कुरु धन जन यौवन गर्वं हरति निमेषात् कालः सर्वम् मायामयमिदमखिलं बुद्ध्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश विदित्वा दिनयामिन्यौ सायं प्रातः शिशिरवसन्तौ पुनरायातः कालः क्रीडति गच्छत्यायुः तदपि न मुञ्चत्याशावायुः काते कान्त धनगतचिन्ता वातुलकिं तव नास्ति नियन्ता त्रिजगति सज्जन संगतिरेका भवति भवार्णवतरणे नौका जटिलो मुण्डीलुञ्चितकेशः काषायाम्बरबहुकृतवेषः पश्यन्नपि च न पश्यति मूढो हृदरनिमित्तं बहुकृतवेषः अंगं गलितं फलितं मुण्डं दशनविहीनं जातं तुण्डं वृद्धो याति गृहीत्वा दण्डं तदपि न मुञ्चत्याशापिण्डम् आग्रे वह्निः पृष्ठे भानुः रात्रौ चुबुकसमर्पितजानुः करतलभिक्षस्तरुतलवासः तदपि न मुञ्चत्याशापाशः कुरुते गंगा सागरगमनं व्रतपरिपालनमथवा दानं ज्ञानविहीन सर्वमतेन मुक्तिं न भजति जन्मशतेन सुरमन्दिरतरुमूलनिवासः शय्याभूतलमजिनं वासः सर्वपरिग्रहभोगत्यागः कस्य सुखं न करोति विरागः योगरतो वा भोगरतो वा संगरतो वा संगविहीनः यस्य ब्रह्मणि रमते चित्तं नन्दति नन्दति नन्दत्येव भगवद्गीता किञ्चिदधीता गंगा जललवकणिका पीता सकृदपि येन मुरारिसमर्चा क्रियते तस्य यमेन न चर्चा भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते संप्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले नहि नहि रक्षति दुष्कृन्करणे. So we have been studying the topic renunciation, and the maximum portion of renunciation is covered, but a quick recap of what we have done so far. Renunciation is the measure of spirituality. So the yardstick of spiritual elevation, evolution. So whoever may be, wherever he may be, whatever he may be, if he is developed, means the actual measurement is renunciation. As an aspirant evolves, as a seeker evolves, higher and higher planes of consciousness, subtler realms, higher and higher realms of personality, his personality, he becomes freed from the lower levels of personality. So the higher he grows, lower levels, he automatically gets detached. So the grosser levels, the lower levels automatically drop off because of the escalation to higher dimension. The more you grow higher quality wise, subtler wise, greater nobler wise, the lower gross level, the sensual level automatically will reduce. He no longer identifies with the gross things, the physical things, in the sense he grows out of the desires from the lower associated with them. So the desires automatically drop off. Just as a person grows into maturity from the non-smoking understanding, the smoking automatically drops off, the drinking automatically drops off. These are all examples you can quote. A person who has been addicted to alcohol or addicted to smoking or gambling or any kind of lower things, the more he gets educated in higher quality of living, a better quality of life, he gives up the lower things associated, those desires drop off. In effect, he renounces them as he reaches the higher heights of spiritual evolution. As a result of that, he gives up the lower, he identifies with the higher. So the more he identifies with the supreme self within, the highest identity, the greatest identity is the recognition of the self within. You are the Atman, you are the self. He attains, he the seeker, the individual seeker, spiritual aspirant, he becomes totally renounced from the world, and his desires for the external world automatically drops off completely. He no longer interested in anything the world offers because of his identification with the supreme God, the Atman within. Completely he identified and he becomes one with that. He no longer interested in the lower things of the body and its perceptions and actions. Mind and its emotions, intellect and its thoughts and ideas will not be having any relevance for him. Because of that, he attains total renunciation. When he desires, his desires drops off completely, fall off. So the self, the Atman, the within, is enveloped by these concentric layers of the various material components, which currently every human being is fully caught up. The material components, which are nothing but the thoughts and desires. The thoughts, that the desires, which are the material equipments, material layers. As you move away from your divine center, from your core of your personality, the ego starts developing. Ego, the arrogance start developing, because you have lost your divinity within. Your thoughts and desires slowly turn into grosser, the lower, and they multiply in the number, and quality falls away, and you at the farthest point from the divinity to farthest point, your ego become maximized, and your thoughts and desires become grossest, countless, numberless. Your desires increase. It is just a pyramid. So, thus, when you live at the lowest level of your personality, at the lowest level means material level and sensual level of your personality, your thoughts and desires have are the gross and numerous. Maximum number is at the physical level, sensual level, and the material level. You find out from the experience of the world, the people who are ceaseless chasing from the materialistic point of view and sensualistic point of view, they entertain numerous desires, gross level. But as you acquire higher knowledge, as you acquire greater wisdom, spiritual knowledge enters into your mind, the natural consequence is your desires reduce from the lower level. You entertain higher and nobler values. You move up to the beyond the materiality and sensuality to the emotions. So you move up to the higher realms of your personality. You start identifying with the emotions, and you start spreading your affection and love to the larger circles. So the thoughts and desires quality improves, quantity reduces naturally. and consequently you renounce the lower, the sensual desires and materialistic desires. Thus, through daily study and reflection on the Vedantic knowledge, on the study and understanding of the scriptures, constantly on the scriptural spiritual literature, you identify with the Supreme God, you identify with the self knowledge. Your core of your personality is the Supreme Self, the Atman. At that stage, your only desire left is to reach the Atman, to merge with the Atman, to reach the infinite peace and bliss, to realize the self, to become God realized. All other interests, all other desires, all other wishes and wants of the world, they fall away. You reach the state of total renunciation when you identify completely with the Supreme God and no other interest, like Prahlada, like Hanumanji. Your interest is on the Supreme Self, like Lord Rama is the only fixation. And we worship Hanumanji because of that fixation, and he enjoys every bit of the world only for the sake of the merging with the Rama, percolating and permeating in every cell of his personality is filled with Rama consciousness. That is the idea one has to understand. The more you grow higher and higher values in life through Vedantic knowledge and understanding, you identify with the Supreme Self. As a result, you give up this total desires. You drop away all the desires. The desires completely vanish from your personality, and only desire left is the desire for merger with the self. That is the state you reach by total renunciation, state of renunciation. Gross physical level maximum desires. As you grow physical to emotional, your desires reduce, less desires. From the emotional to intellectual, where a person is completely identifies with the nation. For example, a politician who is considering the country welfare is no longer interested in the personal desires. Such a person, automatically his intellectual desire replaces the physical emotional desires. He has no interest in the physical and materiality accumulating, neither his family welfare, because all are included, because he's fired with the intellectual idea. I wanted to serve the country, the people at all the world at large. That is his commitment and dedication and fixation intellectually. From there, if you go subtler level, the desires further fall away, because his desire is to spiritually develop, to serve the master, to reach the enlightenment, to gain the knowledge of the reality, to probe into that godhood and become the enlightenment is the ultimate goal. Once you have that complete fixation, all other desires automatically drop off. It is like a triangle. The bottom is more and more, and ultimately at the peak there is only one desire left. The desire is to merge with the self. So the renunciation would mean delivering everything to the Supreme God, the Atman. Everything is Tara, nothing is Mara, everything to the Supreme Reality. Not considering the body, mind, and intellect as yours. This body, this mind, this intellect, these perceptions, these emotions, these thoughts, these ideas are not mine. Everything is thine. Attributing, delivering everything to Supreme Reality, dropping the false idea of personal self. This limited self, this local self has no idea, no identity at all. Casting aside your vain accumulating spirit of attitude, of possessive attitude, accumulative attitude, you automatically understand and you abandon accumulating interest. Constantly, whole life, people are acquiring, accumulating, hoarding, and preserving, and own fond hope of enjoying in the future. This is the constantly happening with every human being because of lack of education, lack of understanding, lack of maturity. Once you understand the knowledge of the supreme reality, you cast aside your vain accumulating spirit, positive attitude, possessive attitude, not arrogating anything to yourself. Whatever happens in the world, nothing belongs to you. Everything belongs to the Supreme God, the Atman. Sab tera, nothing is mera. That is the attitude you develop with the dispassion, the renunciation, resigning everything to the reality, taking refuge in the reality, appropriating everything to the Atman, the God in you. Then you rise above this little self, rise above this individuality, and you gain that ultimate knowledge of the reality. Your ego is sublimated to the supreme consciousness, pure consciousness, God consciousness. This is the purpose of renunciation. It is your ego that becomes involved, attached in the affairs of the world. Your ego that gets enmeshed, entangled in the activities of the world, and obsessed with the mundane duties and responsibilities, constantly worried and anxiety. You are anxious about the duties and responsibilities which are ego born, result oriented, and you are possessed and obsessed and gets crushed by these obligatory duties and responsibility of the mundane nature. Rising above the ego and identifying with the supreme self, with the real self, you remain above worldly care and anxiety. You remain above worldly pressures, worldly care, worldly anxiety. You experience supreme peace and bliss. You remain detached, disinterested, disconnected mentally from the worldly affairs because of the result of identification with the Supreme Self, free from the persecutions of the ego. The ego will not affect you anymore because you are realized the real identity. Maintaining that exalted state, you plunge into single pointed meditation to absorb into the realization of the self. That single pointed meditation, once you maintain sustained for a time, it's a question of time you reach the spiritual enlightenment, you attain God realization, self realization. This is what the process of purpose of renunciation. Renunciation is the step towards the meditation and realization. So the renunciation is nothing but a state which you reach through knowledge of real self. As a result, you renounce the world. You automatically have no desires for the world because you understand the world cannot give you permanent peace and satisfaction any level, and you drop it by gaining the knowledge of the reality, knowledge of the Atman, knowledge of the Brahman, the Supreme Self. You are that Supreme Self. Once you gain that knowledge, the automatically the desires pertaining to the world and your individual identity, your ego and egocentric desires completely drop away. So everything you attribute to the self and self alone. So the practice of negating the little self, I am not this personality, this individuality, this name, this form, this appearance, these are all false. You recognize this is only temporary. So you practice this through negation of this little self, a local self, a limited self, a small self, an ego, and asserting the real self in you. You are the Atman, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Atma Brahma, Tattvamasi, that the what? You are that Atman, I am that Atman. That is the recognition of the knowledge of the self. The self Real self helps you rising above the false identity, false personality of individuality, and subduing your ego, effacing your copywriting spirit, me and mine. These feelings, these emotions and thoughts engender. So, engender free feed you little appropriating self and ego. So the I and mine only solidifies your achievements. I got this, I have to get that, I am the owner, I have to own this, I am the owner of a company, I am the CEO, I am the director, I am engineer, I am a lawyer, I am a Vedantin, I am a disciple, I am a teacher, I am a student, I am a doctor. All these declarations are ego born, individual born, the little self. The moment you understand, I am not this, I am the supreme self, whole individuality melts away. The appropriating self, that ego and arrogation of this selfish ego automatically drops. You must negate your ego and attain the state of renunciation. You got to gain the state of pure self renunciation. Remember, you are that supreme self, the Atman. You are not this body, not this false personality, not what you believe yourself to be now. That is not what is your limited identity. Everybody gives their visiting card. This visiting card is not you. You are the Atman, says the Upanishad, says the Vedanta. That you have to remember to get out of this affairs of the world and sufferings of the world. Remember, you are the supreme self, the Atman, not this small personality anymore. Your self is complete, whole, everything, all full, paripurna, infinite. Asserting that self, emphasizing that supreme self, asserting the self is accepting everything. The entire world is your own supreme self. You are that supreme self. You accept that yourself is the whole world, not this small personality you believe yourself to be. So, renunciation, therefore, is not giving up anything but taking up everything, whole world, and you become the world and you go beyond. You are the self. Not disposition, but all possession. Does renunciation crown you king of kings, master of masters, Caesar. You become the king of the universe. That is the state you achieve by gaining the knowledge of reality and getting the renunciation state by asserting the supreme God, negating you are not this personality, not this ego, not this individuality, not this body, mind, intellect, is the conviction you achieve by constant remembrance. As you think, so you become. So you constantly think about who you are, you become that. So the spirit of renunciation, the attitude of renunciation, the identity of the supreme self while functioning in the world through the body, mind, intellect, the identity you maintain, the spirit of renunciation, that purifies your action. Right now, all actions are impure because are of their ego-ridden, egocentric, desire-ridden activity. The moment you apply the spirit of renunciation, that action becomes purified. You must learn to renounce your sense of doership. I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the person who is executing. That I am has to be curtailed, I am has to be dismantled, removed, nullified, and the Atman is the real doer. Atman is the executing the actions. So the moment you have that spirit of Atman, that renunciation, it purifies action. You drop the doership in the action. So who is acting? The self alone acts through the body, mind, intellect. Also renounce your interest in the fruit of action. So the fruit also you are not concerned, because action you execute because you get the fruit. So you are having fruit in the mind, but because of your egocentric identity, your selfish identity, your personal identity, you become a result oriented. The moment the result is not achieved, you get agitated, you get disturbed, you experience stress and strain, you get worried and anxious about the results. The moment you have this spirit of renunciation, the feeling of detachment of emotion, and the self alone is functioning through this body and acting, then the attributing the result also to the self. Whatever happens, nothing to bother me, it is all the Terra, the result is by God's given. So your attitude, your complete disposition changes from Mara to Terra, as also renounce your interest in the fruit of action. Thereby, your interest in the fruit also reduces. You drop the fruit of action and you become peaceful and blissful. Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha saha sannyasi saha yogi. The person who is a sannyasi, who is a yogi, who is a renunciate, he is the person who renounces his fruits of action, karyam karma, and does what he ought to do without the slightest ego or arrogation for the executing of the actions. That's what you must clip the past, thus must you clip the past worries and future anxieties and plunge into action in the present. Because of the ego and egocentric desires, mind slips into the past, what happened in the past, and mind anxiety for the results enjoyment of the future. Because of the lack of powerful intellect and understanding, you are not the doer, the self is the doer. So you plug in that and then you clip the past and future, and you execute action per se. That spirit of detachment, that spirit of renunciation is renders action perfect and par excellence, because the mind is not disturbed, the intellect is completely backs that minds, and mind is backing the action with complete concentration. You execute the action and you become excellent. Actions become productive. The beauty and grandeur of human activity is the renunciation in action, not renunciation of action. Today, people misunderstand, the entire world misunderstands what renunciation means: giving up action, dropping action, resignation and retirement. They think voluntary retirement. They break from for the weekends or vacations. They go for holiday. They desperately look for out because they are fed up with the actions because of the ego and egocentric desires. They don't have the concept of spirit of renunciation in action. Therefore, they suffer the consequence. So here is the great knowledge provides that beautiful technique while executing your duties and responsibilities. The beauty and grandeur of human activity is renunciation in action, not renunciation of action. Therefore, renunciation has been classified. So, how many types of renunciations are available? So, renunciation has further been classified under three broad categories. There are three varieties of renunciations are available, known as Sattvic renunciation, Rajasik renunciation, and Tamasic renunciation. There are three types of renunciations available. What are the lowest and highest qualities? So the highest is the Sattvic renunciation. It is the highest, which is the only true renunciation. And Rajasic is the conditioned Temporary state of renunciation is the Rajasik renunciation, and Tamasic renunciation is the lowest, and it is not a renunciation at all. So these three are to be properly studied and understood so that we don't fall into the false renunciation and get on to the true renunciation and get the benefits out of it, ultimately reach the godhood. So the tamasic renunciation is a nature of the individual who relinquishment. He relinquishes the obligatory activities, obligatory functions, obligatory duties out of delusion, out of complete delusion and confusion. A human being has to fulfill his obligatory duties and responsibilities. Every human being has to perform two types of duties: daily, regular, routine duties, occasional, special duties. This is a must. So, daily duties is like taking care of your body, taking care of the house, taking care of the family duties, children duties, whatever your daily routine duties you have fixed yourself, you must perform. And the occasional special duties are the duties where the visitor come once in a while, somebody visits your home, somebody you have to pick them up from airport or somewhere, you have to go to the special services you got to offer. These are all the occasional special duties, both you must perform. But the could be a business or community welfare or country or etc. These are the basic obligations. Relinquishing duties and responsibilities out of ignorance is the tamasic renunciation. You give up because you do not know. You got to, take the vaccine for corona, but you don't care. You don't bother. You are ignorant. You are deluded. You say that what is this corona? What will happen? Vaccine, if we don't take, nothing will happen. So you give some false reasons to avoid your obligatory duty as a citizen of a country. You must perform your duties and responsibilities. So relinquishing duties and responsibilities out of ignorance, out of innocence, is the tamasic renunciation. Indifference to the considered as tamasic. Also discarding things out of ignorance. You throw the things away out of ignorance is of their value and worth. You don't care about the things like yoga. You don't care about something which is a fitness, a good food, a good exercises. You discard because you don't know the value, because one is not aware of its pleasure content, one is not aware of its enlarging strength within them. By out of delusion, out of ignorance, you discard them, would also fall under the tamasic renunciation. People give up what is beneficial and take up what is dangerous, suffering, even including the health disciplines and food disciplines and everything. This tamasic renunciation means they are out of delusion. They ignore the precious things because of lack of understanding the pleasure content in those beneficial things. Next is the Rajasic renunciation. Rajasic renunciation is relinquishment of action because of out of fear. So you renounce in any activity, you give up any action because of fear. Fear of what? Fear of bodily pain or mental strain. So you give up action because of physical pain or mental strain. You give up an action, that is called Rajasic renunciation. You can see many people, they come and told many times that, oh, if you do gym, you get bodily pains, so don't go to gym. So you go, if you do yoga, you will get physical pain. Therefore, don't do yoga. So, because of the pain involved in anything, they give up activity. That is called Rajasik Renunciation. They give up obligatory duty and responsibilities because of fear of bodily pain or mental strain. So you don't want to take mental strain because it is too much for you, like studying any competitive exam or studying any civil services or no IAS or chartered accountancy. Some people give up. I can't take any more that mental strain. So they give up the obligatory duty out of mental strain involved in that particular activity. If you remove the physical pain and mental strain, they take up that action, they perform that action. But because the pain involved physically and strain involved mentally, they don't take up action. Such people who are practicing giving up the action out of these two are called tamasis, Rajasik renunciation. Rajasic renunciation. Tamasic renunciation means giving up action out of delusion and ignorance. You don't know the value, therefore you give up actions because of lack of understanding, lack of analysis, out of ignorance and innocence. So, it is out of physical pain and mental strain that may cause. In that case, the person claiming to have renounced action would be willingly to take it up if the strain or pain part of it is removed. Such pseudo relinquishment is considered rajasic. So, the problem the humanity faces is that they don't understand the value and worth of the taking up higher knowledge, higher unselfish cause because of the Rajasic renunciation and Tamasic renunciation fully in them. So tamas is nothing but a tamasic quality. The quality is laziness, inertia, heedlessness, procrastinating, irresponsibility, recklessness, carelessness. You see all the activities of most of the human beings today are tamasic in nature. They go over speed. They'll say, I can stand any speed. Every day people are dying. You can hear them in the newspapers, in the television channels. Every day people die because of carelessness and recklessness. Out of sheer ignorance, lives are gone. Precious lives are going because of ignorance and innocence. That is the lackadaisical, the indisposed to activity. They don't want to act. They don't have feeling. There is no thinking. There neither the mind nor the intellect. They can't think properly, they can't feel properly. That is tamasic, is sloth and sleep. All the time sleeping. Such people are disaster. You see in Ramayana, the great Ramayana, when Rama decided to bring Sita, the consort of Sita, from Ravanasura's captivity, he first goes and kills Kumbhakarna because that Kumbhakarna represents the tamasic guna. Is Kumbhakarna known to sleep for 6 months and he wakes up and eats for 6 months. Eating 6 months, sleeping 6 months is the depiction of Kumbhakarna, the character in Ramayana. The Hindu scripture is well portrayed. The nature of tamasic quality within the every human being is that Kumbhakarna. So Rama, before conquering Ravana and bringing back Sita, he kills Kumbhakarna first. So you got to remove your tamasic nature. You got to destroy tamas. Tamas means indisposed to activity. Wherever inactivity prevails, you plug in activity. Wherever laziness prevails, you must inject actions. Inaction kills you. So you see the personalities, their obesity, inaction. They are not functioning basic obligatory duties and responsibilities. You must be fit and dynamic as a human being. But these tamasic people, they don't care about their health. They are ignorant and innocent. They pay bills. They earn money only to pay bills in the hospital. They're physically completely deteriorated. By the time 30s, 40s, there are complaints about the blood sugar, blood pressure, bypass, all sorts of diseases because of laziness, indisposed to activity. The bodies are obese. That causes destruction. So self-destruction, that is called Kumbhakarna. Beautiful character is portrayed because of tamasic nature. So in this context, tamasic renunciation also, you give up activity out of delusion and ignorance. You don't know the value. You don't understand the value. That is the tamasic renunciation. Then Rajasic. Rajasic person is hurried, worried, passionate, agitated, stress and strain. They are acting with a lot of mental agitations, disturbances. They also go through suffering and sorrow because they don't have the peace of mind while executing actions. Either people are inactive, or when they start acting, when they start performing activity, they get agitated. This disturbances, this agitation starts because of the rajasic quality in the individual. What is rajas? Is the passionate, agitated activity, desire ridden activity, beautifully represented by the Puranas. In the Ramayana, the rajas is represented by Ravanasura. The Ravana is a great king, but he got this rajogunam. That's why he is constantly buffeted by the desires and ego and selfishness. He got everything. He had everything. He got every enjoyment, whatever he wanted in the world, but he is not happy. He is not peaceful. He is always agitated because his desires are uncontrollable. So he wanted Sita, the consort of Lord Rama. That is the end of his life. So that is the individual's incapacity to control his desires because of agitations. His intellect lost its clarity. So he becomes involved in the affairs of the world, and he becomes sandwiched by the ups and downs and whims and fancies of the mind, likes and dislikes. His likes and dislikes drive his actions rather than his intellectual discretion. His intellect doesn't plan and program and control the desire and act. His mind uses his intellect. His mind full of desire, using the intellect for its fulfillment. Therefore, he gets stressed. See all the people, all the world, from the east to the west, from north to south, everybody is rushing, hurrying, worrying. You ask, stop anybody, why are you living? No idea, no clarity, no purpose, no goal in life. They are caught up in the world of herd instinct, the peer pressure. They're chasing the world. Their altar is the worldly acquisition and enjoyment. The two motivations powerfully drive every human being is acquiring, and preserving and enjoying what they acquire. This is the be all and end all of life, is the rajogunam. and they get caught up in this rajas, and they are never been happy because the desires are multiplying constantly. The more you acquire, the more your mind wants to acquire. A person sitting in the wheelchair, his all desire is to get two legs to walk. He has no legs. You ask him, what do you want? A person who is suffering, handicapped, is sitting in wheelchair. You ask, what do you want? He says, I want legs. I don't want anything else. Go to the person who have legs. He will never be happy. He will be asking, how are you? I am fine, but if I get a bicycle, I'll be happy. I can go everywhere. So go to a person who has got a bicycle. He'll say, I wanted a two-wheeler, a motorcycle. You go to the fellow who has got a two-wheeler. Sir, I have now small family. If I get a small car, I'll be happy. So the desire is unending. The chase to the world is unending, and there is no peace and happiness anywhere in the acquisition of any amount of possessions, objects, and beings in the world. Never be. The moment you ask a fellow who has a car, if I get a partner, I'll be happy. The fellow, you ask him who had a partner, who has got a wife and kids, he'll say, when I get rid of this woman, when I get separated, when I go lose this, give up this woman, I'll be happy. So chase never ends. This is ad infinitum. If I get that, I'll be happy. If I get that, I'll be happy. Always this Rajogunam says that if I get something, I'll be happy in the future. So all the time in the present is miserable. But Sattvic person, Sattvic nature, it explains the basic hollowness of this world and this chase of rat race. He says, he never links the present happiness, he never links with future acquisition. You should never link the present happiness with future acquisition. If I get that, I'll be happy. If I get that, I'll be happy. It will never be happy. You will always be miserable. So never link your present happiness with future acquisition. That is the Sattvic nature, because he understands there is no restriction to acquire the world, but your present happiness must not be linked with future acquisition. You must be happy in the present and then acquire for any more. Nothing wrong in the acquisition, but the blunder is you have to understand the happiness is within you and keep the mind whatever you have satisfied and then acquire more, no problem. That is the sattvic quality, which is portrayed beautifully in the Ramayana. That third brother, who is the third brother, is Vibhishana. These are the three brothers of the Ravanasura, that Sri Lanka, who Vibhishana, Ravana, and Kumbhakarna. These three brothers portray these three gunas in human being: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Highest grade, medium grade, and low grade. The Rajogunam is ego and egocentric desires and passionate, agitated, and Tamoguna is slothful and sleep and laziness, inactivity, no reaction, no response to the world, no responsibility. These two are the gunas one has to get rid of to get spiritual development, which is also here the renunciation. Also the same concept has been given. The renunciation of tamasic nature is you give up responsibilities, give up duties, activities out of ignorance, out of sleep. So people are sleeping. Nowadays trend is sleep late and wake up late. The day is over. People get up, especially on Sunday, they get up in the afternoon, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, direct lunch. They don't see the sun at all on Sundays. This is the common trend nowadays. This is the tamasic renunciation. They lose the bliss and happiness of the highest quality. They enjoy, they think that happiness or pleasure or joy in laziness, sleep. That is the tamasic renunciation. They discard the things out of ignorance of the value because of they are not aware of the pleasure content would fall under the tamasic renunciation. Whereas Rajasic renunciation is relinquishment of action out of physical pain or mental strain. You do not want to do any activity because there is a pain involved. People are scared. Some people, one set of people are scared of marriage. They have full of desire, but they don't want to marry. Why? Because they are not capable of going through physical pain or mental strain involved in the obligatory duties and responsibility. They feel it is a burden, but they wanted enjoyment. This is called Rajasic renunciation. They don't want to take up any job, any profession, or any business or anything because of pain or strain involved in that, mental strain involved in that activity. They give up responsibilities. Why are you not doing job? So much pain. Why are you not doing business? So much strain. So why are you not working? So much trouble. So they don't want to go through struggle. They don't want to go through pain and suffering to get somewhere. That is called Rajasic renunciation. These people also don't get the fruits of true renunciation. The moment you give up this pain or strain, they will take up that same action. That is called a Rajasic renunciation. Ironically, it's very interesting. The true renunciation does not mean anything giving up. It's only taking up. Sattvic renunciation is the only true renunciation. It never tells about renouncing anything, giving up everything. That's what Bhagavad Gita also says. Karyam karma karoti yaha saha sannyasi sahayogi. Whoever does what he ought to do in life, he is a renunciate, he is a sannyasi. A carpenter does carpentry, an engineering does engineering, a painter does painting, a teacher does teaching. Whoever does what he is supposed to do is a man of renunciation, is a sannyas. But nobody understands this definition. What is the renunciation today mean? Giving up and going to Himalayas. He left the family, went to Himalayas. He's a great renunciate. He gave up the job and he is sitting down in the home. He's a renunciate. All tamasic definitions they attribute to true renunciation. But ironically, the true renunciation does not mean giving up anything in life. Sattvic renunciation, acclaimed as the highest order, speaks of performance of action. Karyam karma karoti yaha. Whoever does what he ought to do. Yaha means whoever does karma, action. Karyam karma. Whoever does what he ought to do, he is a sannyasi. Performance of action. A human has to perform his obligatory functions in life. You must perform your duties and responsibilities to the hilt. You cannot escape from them. He cannot give up his duty and responsibility. He must do what he ought to do in life without being involved or attached. Without ego and egocentric desires, he must execute his actions. That is the spirit of renunciation. With the attitude, I am not the doer. The self is the doer. He has to plan and program and execute his actions to the fullest his ability without attachment or involvement in the actions or the results of actions. Neither involved in the action nor involved in the result of action because he is not functioning from his ego and egocentric standpoint, but he is attributing to the higher cause. So his intellect must conceive a nobler ideal. Highest ideal a human being can conceive is the Supreme Self. His actions must be dedicated to the self-realization, God realization, and perform without the doership. I am not the doer. The attitude, the self is the doer. I am only the instrument for the self. So self is the doer. I am not the doer. With that attitude, if you function, you are functioning in the spirit of renunciation. Actions, your focus is on the action, not in the result, because you have no desire propelling directly to action, because the desire is shifted to the Supreme Self, the Atman, and you are peaceful and happy. So action brings peace because of the attitude behind the action is I am not the doer, I am not the enjoyer. The self is the doer, self is the enjoyer, delivering everything to the Supreme God while executing actions, while performing your duties and responsibilities. That fixation must be there. That is Sattvic renunciation. Every action must be directed towards the Supreme God, the Atman. There is no personal interest, there is no motives. He who cannot give up his duty and responsibility, he must do what he ought to do without being involved in his action or entertaining any profit motive. No interest in the fruit of action. Nashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha saha sannyasi sayo. No phalam also, no fruit. With no desire, no fruit. Just carrying on action for action's sake. Execute, playing the game, for example. Just enjoy the game. No interest in suffixes or prefixes. Executing the actions and the present moment without thinking of the past and future. That is a sannyasi. Just carry on work. Objectivity means total detachment while acting. You are not detaching the action, you are detaching the mental weaknesses of desire, ego, and selfishness, and doership, enjoyership. All you remove and replace them with the Supreme God, the Atman, and execute that action. You are a renunciate. No desire driving action, no craving for fruit. Thus, Sattvic renunciation means acting without mind's attachment to action and anxiety for the fruit thereof. Though no attachment to the action, no attachment to fruit, no ego, no desire, no doership and enjoyership, then that is called Sattvic renunciation. With that Sattvic renunciation is the true renunciation, is performing action without any frills, without any mental pollution. Then actions are going on, you reach the divinity. So you become a dynamic person, at the same time peaceful, and ultimately lead to the supreme peace and bliss and enlightenment as well. This is the Sattvic renunciation, which is the true renunciation. We'll continue the way to success, the topic, in the next class. Thank you very much. Hari Om.